Hello everyone from Tony the Scout Ghost. I'm very honored to be here today with Mary Matheson. Hello Mary and thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Me as well. So Mary, I know that you're a great content creator, you're an award-winning storyteller, but there are still some people that don't know about you. So can you please introduce yourself to my readers?
Yeah, sure. I'm an immersive director. I usually make factual documentaries, and I'm also a professor of practice at for Arizona State University. We're just opening a new center in downtown Los Angeles, actually. So I teach a master's. And I've been working in immersive production for about 7 years now. I moved over from regular filmmaking into making virtual reality documentaries.
And what's interesting that I'm wondering how have you switched between the traditional storytelling to VR storytelling? So what's your story? Why have you decided to experiment with VR?
Well, I think that I was always looking for new ways to tell stories, and a lot of my career has been making. I was a foreign correspondent originally. I was a journalist, so I was always trying to sort of tell stories from other countries and bring them over to Europe or the United States to the audiences there. So, what was interesting about virtual reality is that instead of bringing my characters or stories from other countries back to Europe, I was able to bring my audience in Europe over to the countries where I was filming and working, and it was a very extraordinary experience the first time I myself watched something in virtual reality, because I understood straight away that you could create a connection between your audience and your character very quickly and with greater depth um, than regular filmmaking. So that was kind of how I was captured into this world, and realized that it was a really powerful medium, it's a really powerful tool to tell these stories.
And using these tools, what are you working on lately? I try to look around. I read that you're creating like an immersive series about the new NASA Artemis mission. So what is it about?
Yeah, well, I can't say too much because it hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
But I'm making it's using virtual reality as well as augmented reality to to let audiences play with the story. It's going to be a really fun experience where you can feel like you're part of the next mission that's going to be going to the moon. Um, again, it just brings the audience into the story so that you feel like you're really part of it. So when you go and watch a film, often you're sort of there and you're looking through the screen and you're observing, whereas with virtual reality you can feel like you're actually there. You're actually in the
Yeah.
scene, in the story. So we thought it would be really fun to do this with NASA with the next mission to the moon.
Wow, I can't wait to discover more about it. Also, I read that something about the NASA Artemis mission is something also about inclusion of people and try to put someone different from the usual white male on the moon. And this is
Exactly.
coherent with what you're working a lot in the past. You always try to work, to raise awareness about important problems like racism, like sexism, inclusion, diversity, blah blah blah. So why do you do this, and why do you think that VR is ideal to treat these kind of themes?
I think there are kind of two reasons. I mean, one is that, we're at the dawn of a new age and this new technology, right? And everybody's starting to talk about the metaverse. Everybody, it's this whole new industry, right? So why not try and create a new ethos, like a new way of working, a new methodology of working, and that's why there's quite a concerted effort to try and make sure that this new industry is inclusive and it's equitable and diverse in the people who are making the stories as well as those who are distributing it. Um, And then, you know, for me personally as well, in my work, generally in my documentary filmmaking, more and more I've been working with characters to co-create the stories, to co-create their own stories. So they have much more ownership over what's being said about them. So you don't just fly in, take some shots. I then, you know, write or make a film about what I think's happening. It really is about them trying to sort of tell their own stories. So for me, that's also what inclusion is about. So you're really sort of working on a much more equal footing with people. And I become, obviously I'm like a mediator or facilitator, you know, between worlds, and with, you know, somebody who knows the technology and knows the techniques that we can use for the storytelling that could work. So you know, so it's really got those two parts to it. So one is actually the content I've always been interested in and worked with, but secondly, that here we are at this new dawn. It's a brand new world. Let's make it a better place, basically.
Yeah, that's very that's very interesting. Opening a parenthesis, you know, we got in touch because we have a common friend which we are working with, and you are together with the MIAT. You're offering, you know, now a masterclass on immersive storytelling. So you try to teach people how to get great movies like the one that you do. So can you tell us something more about this kind of masterclass?
Yeah, absolutely. I was so excited to, you know, be invited by MIAT, as you were saying, this fantastic organization run by Elizabeth Rotolo in Milan, and because it was really kind of what I was interested in. And again, you know, we don't want this to be in a very sort of exclusive little area where only very few people are working on this. We understand this technology is happening now, and it should be learned by everybody, whether you're an artist, whether you're a filmmaker, whether you're somebody who is in advertising or education. You are going to be using these tools more and more. So we really want to, you know, train up and teach people how to use it. So we set up this masterclass. Last year was the first year, and it's 60 hours. It's like a full immersion boot camp. We have small groups, and we basically cover the fundamentals of immersive technology. Obviously now we're talking a lot about the metaverse as well, and a little bit about virtual production. And what we do is we kind of teach the students who come on the course, you know, all the techniques that they might want to be using to create their own story, or their own pitch, let's say. So at the end of the week, they all come up with a pitch that they then pitch to some top commissioning editors. So we have Liz Rosenthal, who's an exec producer, and she's also the curator of Venice VR Expanded. We have Miriam Ashad from Canada, who's head of partnerships at the Phi Center in Canada. Dan Tucker, he used to be the curator of Sheffield DocFest. He's now an exec producer in his own right. And this year as well, we have a new person coming who is from Somnium Space, called Artur Sichov.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, you know, there's a real variety, as you can see, but the idea is that anyone who comes on the course really gets hands-on with all the tech, but also is working towards producing something at the end of it, which actually, you know, could get them some work if they're interested, or can certainly help them, you know, if they want to sort of develop a pitch within their organization.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's something that can be very interesting for people who want really to learn this new medium of telling stories. But this is not the first year you do this; it's the second edition. So I'm interested. You know, what has happened last year? So how was the course? What you have learned
Oh, it
for your
was so
students?
great.
What they have learned for you? How has it gone?
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. I mean, you can imagine it was really intense because it was the first time we were doing it, and it sold out. We had international broadcasters. We had, you know, the president and the vice president of Women in Film and TV from Italy. We had people from events organizations. We had sound specialists. We had video editors as well as filmmakers. So it was like a real variety, as you can imagine, and we pack it in. I mean, I always say, like, I teach like I cook, because I'm always terrified people don't have enough food and there's not enough, you won't have enough knowledge. So like I make sure that you basically have everything that you need. And you know, for that we also brought in other specialists. So obviously I'm a director, but we also brought in Dan Stankowski from the UK. He was teaching game engines. We had you know, other people teaching sound, immersive sound, augmented reality. We had someone from Facebook talking about the technology and how it sort of works with your brain. So, you know, we brought in people who were real specialists in the very specific technologies as well, because you know, just to give the attendees like a real insight into the technology if they wanted to go down a particular route.
Okay, and what do you think is the best added value of this masterclass that you're doing? If you had to choose one thing.
I mean, I think that it's you know, the thing is it's a really full 8 days. You know, you really do learn the basics of everything. But I think, you know, the you know, what makes it particularly relevant and particularly special is that it's very industry focused. It's very hands-on. So there's a purpose to it. You're not just going in and listening to somebody talking to you. You are getting in there, you're working the cameras, you're recording sound, you're learning how to use the game engine. But also through the week, you have to have in your mind, okay, if I had a project, what would that project be? Like what, as I'm going along, learning about all of these, because these are creative people, right? So, you know, what would I do if I could do anything? If George Lucas came to me and said, here you go, here's $1 million, you can make what you want, what would you make? And that's really important, you know, because it's very focused and practical, because everybody that's really on this course are, you know, they're already working in some business. They're all professionals working in either, as I said, in you know, coming from all backgrounds. So these are people who want to make sure they're using this to progress within their careers, or if they're artists, you know, in their artistic work.
That's great. Anyway, we'll leave a link to register and have more information about this in the description of the video. So
That would be
people
great.
that want to join you in this can follow you, and I really invite everyone to check out this masterclass because it looks very cool. And I guess this is one of the things that you're doing now that makes you happy because you can teach people to do something. But trying to think a bit more about your career, is there something about all your work that really made you proud of doing it, and why?
I mean, I think when I feel proud is when a change has happened for the people who I've worked with in the film. So I think that, you know, as a journalist, when I started out, I felt really like it was a very strange relationship where you would go in and do your work and then leave these people behind, and then you didn't know what happened to them. So that's when I started working more with nonprofits or organizations who were actually working with the characters that I might be talking to, so that there was some support. So, you know, really the proudest moments I've had is when those people have benefited from that film being made or from the VR being made. And in the sense that, you know, their lives have changed as a result of it, or suddenly within their community, they are respected because people have heard their story. They now understand what the issue is. So in terms of, you know, peace building and that kind of work, that's what that makes it kind of worthwhile.
Wow. And I'm trying now to change the context and try to steal from you some information outside the masterclass. And I want to know, you know, trying to give some lessons to the people watching this interview is, what are, in your opinion, the most important lessons to take in mind when shooting a VR or 360 movie or documentary? So,
I mean, the most important thing to think about is that you're not shooting a scene, you're creating a world. Okay?
okay.
Because your audience is going to be in that world and they're living in that world. So one of the major things that we talk about and that we learn about in the masterclass is world building, and how you create a world. And then from your world, you can break down into scenes, and that's how you might end up shooting or creating an environment in a game engine.
Okay. So creating a 360 movie is really like work, a bit like some game design that creates these worlds, and you do something similar.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. What's so interesting is that I take techniques now from theater, from gaming, from radio. It's not just film. You're learning techniques where you're using sound to direct people, or like a theater maker, you're thinking about the whole space. You don't just think of what's in front of you. So you're bringing in all these different techniques from all these different genres. So it's a very different experience.
Wow. And do you think that apart from this, what are the differences in shooting from 2D, flat movies and 360 movies? Apart from this world creation, what are the differences? What are the lessons to take in mind if someone that is listening to you and is used to shoot, short videos? How do you switch to 360 instead?
I mean, one of the major things is that you don't shoot in sequences. So, in a regular 16:9 film, you would think, okay, the regular methodology is you do a wide shot, a mid shot, a close up. You don't do that at all in 360 filming. It's much more that you're creating a scene, as I said, let's say, so as opposed to a shot. Yeah. So, the main thing, like you would never try and do a close up in 360. What you need to do is bring your character or whatever the scene is closer to your camera. So you leave the camera in the place rather than bringing it down, because that in a headset, that feels horrific. It feels really uncomfortable. So that's the first thing. Secondly, don't move the camera unless you've got proper equipment, because you're just going to make people sick. And that is the biggest thing that people they find it really hard to get their heads around that. But it's the worst thing is if you move the 360 camera and without doing it properly, it's just horrific.
Yeah, and there is this little debate about if it's better the 360 format because it's super immersive, or the 180 VR 3D format because anyway people just look forward, but if you rotate you lose the magic. So which one is better? Why? What do you prefer?
This is a great question. I prefer 360, I'm going to be honest, because I really love the fact that you can look behind you, that you can look all around you. And I think that it really does make you feel much more, like you are there. However, 180 is great as a kind of in between. 180 is like a really good way to start off. It's much easier to move in 180. It really is almost like an in between, but you can use the benefit of the stereo. And that's what's kind of cool. I mean, I don't know if you've seen there's a great new lens that Canon has brought out, and that's really fun to work with because it's a 180 lens, and you've got a lot of freedom. I mean, again, when you move around, you really should have it on a gimbal, but you're quite free to sort of play with it in a way that with 360 it's much more difficult to make sure that the shots are really good. But I think for me, in terms of taking your audience to another world, 360 is the king.
Okay, that's the right answer probably. And what do you answer to people that say the 360 movies in 2022 are not relevant? There's these hard fans of interactions of gaming and said old stuff with the Oculus Go, this is that. So what do you answer to it?
360 film is still my favorite because it's so beautiful. Like, I think that I can understand why people say that because of the interaction, and the interactivity is obviously limited. But I think that will come. But I think that 360 is this whole genre that we still have to discover. We're just learning how to make it. And for me, it's game engines are nearly photoreal, but not completely yet. And certainly, if you have people in the scene, there's nothing like the real thing for me. So, and it's certainly not dead. I mean, I'm making a series at the moment. I'm making one film, a part of a series, which is a 360 series. I made a 10-part series last summer. I think it's still alive and kicking.
Okay. So this is an answer for everyone talking about this. And
Yeah,
when you shoot this kind of movies, some people sometimes ask me some advice like, what camera should I buy? What software should I
yeah,
use? But I'm a developer, so I have no idea. So I ask you to help me in understanding what answering. So what
yeah,
tools do you
sure.
suggest to people to
Okay.
use?
I would. Do you know what? The GoPro Fusion is now called a GoPro Max. That's a really great camera. I still use it for like if I've got a drone shot or like we're in the water or something like that. They're really good quality. They do very good quality, and they're only about £300 or £400. I mean, I presume euros, more or less the same. So I would always recommend that. I myself play with that quite a lot. When I'm shooting something that has a bigger budget, I would probably use an Insta Pro 2. It's kind of standard really now. There were lots of other cameras around. My favorite was the Yi Halo, which had 17 lenses.
Wow.
And it was beautiful, that camera, but it's now defunct. There's a lot of them that have become they're just not used anymore because the systems aren't supported. So, but the Insta Pro 2 is great. It's a great camera. So those are really the two that would be the mainstay for me.
What software do you use for your 360 to
I
process your
mean,
360 movies?
they just get edited on Premiere Pro
Okay.
and then, stitched with Mystica.
Okay, so finally I have some answers to give to my friends when they ask me this kind of questions. And I wanted to ask you another question about storytelling. So
Sure.
there are lots of 360 or VR storytelling experiences made by amazing creators out there. What are your favorite ones?
Hmm. Okay, so one of my favorites is Traveling While Black. I don't know if you know that. That's a
Yeah.
360 film. And I think it's actually really pretty simple and shot in quite a straightforward way, but they also composite in archive in a really beautiful way. But I think that what was so good about that film as well was that they brought something historical into the present and made it feel very relevant. And I think that that was a very powerful piece of VR. I also watched recently Paper Birds, which has been made by Baobab Studios. And that's a beautiful little film that really plays with scale and in a really fun way. Gloomy Eyes, again, I think is one of my favorites. Battle Scar is that's a really fun,
I love it.
and that plays with scale. I think what's so fun about those kinds of experiences that they are, you can feel like you're there in the game or in the story 1 minute, and then the next minute you're watching from the outside. And I kind of like it when there's a sort of playfulness like that.
Cool. And so I don't ask you more questions to steal your secrets, but I still want to ask you one thing. So talking about, I will talk a lot about lessons, class, etc. And life, our professional life teaches us many lessons. So what are some lessons that you want to say to people that want to do your job? I mean, not the technical ones that we already discussed about the tools, etc., but really how
Mm.
someone that wants to do your job should approach the job, should know what problems are. So what are some life lessons you get from your job?
I mean, I think the biggest thing I would say to people is to jump into it, like join us. Like we want more people in this industry. We want it to grow. We want people experimenting, just kind of have fun with it. Like I think what I found really incredible, I've been a filmmaker for like 20 years. what's really fun for me about 360 in particular, but actually VR generally, is that you're experimenting and playing, and sometimes coming up with something, a technique that's never been tried before, and that's kind of cool. We are the pioneers, and it's really an exciting place to be at that sort of coalface. And it can be frustrating. Like sometimes it's a nightmare. Like I've been on shoots where my cameras die because they are, they're all prototypes, and it's too hot, or we don't know why they're dead, or it's really hard. It can be really difficult and really frustrating. But equally, there are times when you shoot something and it's amazing, and people look at it and they've never seen that before, and that's a very exciting place to be. So that's kind of what I would say to people. But the biggest thing is to just to jump in with us. Like it's to go for it and try and do whatever interests you, and sort of push it forward yourself, because this is, it's such a new industry that there are no rules right now, right? We're creating the rules.
And that's so exciting.
Yeah.
So how do you see the future of this environment with new rules?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting bigger, isn't it? It's interesting. I mean, I think it's, people often ask me about what I think about Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, and the metaverse, and is it a good thing or a bad thing that Facebook is so involved? And I mean, I guess I just think it's ultimately, it's good that people now know about what the metaverse is, or people are asking about it. I mean, it feels like it's growing. The statistics show that it's growing, in numbers of headsets and people working within the industry. So, I think there's still a way to go in terms of mass adoption. But certainly more and more people are getting headsets, and that's, in a sense, we need to be creating the content for them.
Yeah, totally agree. So we are at the end of this interview. The time has flown so fast. But I have, as usual, my last question is there anything else you want to add? You want to say to my viewers, to my readers? It's your time. Say whatever you want.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think, again, come and join us. Like, come to the masterclass if you want to learn about it. It's a really fun place to be. You meet other creators and you work together in small groups. So come to that. But if you can't come to that, there are lots of other ways to get involved, and just explore and have fun. Get a headset, get into it, and come and be part of it.
And that's great. I totally agree with you. It's a great time to be in RMVR and experiment. And the first thing to start is just to start, without worrying.
Exactly.
Get the devices, start experimenting, make a mess, and then you will create something good in the end. So, Mary, it's been so great speaking with you. Thanks again for taking the time. And I wish you
for
a
having
great
me.
day. Thanks everyone for watching this interview, and I wish anyone a great day in RMVR. So bye bye everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Tony.